My beloved, pause. Do not move forward yet. Do not let your attention drift, not even for a moment. This moment is not ordinary, and this message did not arrive by accident. Out of countless paths, countless seconds, countless possible interruptions, this one found you. That alone should tell you something. You were meant to be here, in this exact breath, hearing these words. Something has already begun rearranging itself around you. You may not have words for it, but you have felt it. There has been a quiet tension in your life, hasn't there? A subtle pressure in your chest. A feeling that something is slightly off, not broken, not collapsing, just misaligned enough to make your spirit restless. You've noticed it in small hesitations, in moments where your energy drops for no clear reason, in nights when your thoughts refuse to settle, even when your body is tired. You've tried to reason with it. You've tried to stay busy. You've told yourself, it's just stress, just life, just a passing phase. But it keeps returning, like a gentle alarm that refuses to stop ringing. My beloved, this is that alarm, not one that screams, one that waits, one that pulses quietly in the background of your days, growing a little stronger each time you ignore it. And now, because of timing you cannot see but your spirit can feel, you are being stopped, interrupted. Gently but firmly, something is approaching your life's doorstep. Not because you are being punished, not because you have failed, not because you are lacking, but because time has reached a narrow crossing point. There are moments in a life when the path can still be adjusted, when a small correction prevents a great collision, when a gentle turn avoids a long season of unnecessary weight. This is one of those moments. Do not be afraid. Fear is not the language of this message. Urgency is. There is a difference. Fear paralyzes. Urgency awakens. You were not meant to discover this later. You were meant to hear this now before a door quietly closes, before a pattern completes itself, before something settles into permanence that does not belong in your story. You may not see the shape of it yet. You do not need to. You only need to recognize that your spirit already knows something is shifting. You have felt it in your body, in your patience, in your prayers that don't come out the same way they used to, in the way your heart reacts to certain conversations, certain thoughts, certain silences. My beloved, you have been walking with quiet strength for longer than you realize. Carrying more than you admit, holding together things that were never meant to rest only on your shoulders, and still you continue, still you show up, still you try, still you hope. That is why this message does not arrive with accusation. It arrives with precision. You are not being confronted. You are being protected. You were selected for this interruption because your life is standing at a turning point. Even if everything on the surface looks the same. Some changes announce themselves with noise and chaos. Others arrive as whispers. This one arrives as a pause, a holy hesitation. A moment where time itself seems to say, wait, do not rush past this. There is a timing woven into your story that cannot be delayed much longer. Without consequence, not destruction, not loss, but a narrowing, a shrinking of possibility, a quiet settling for less than what your spirit was designed to hold. You have not missed your moment, but you are standing very close to the edge of it. Something is slightly off course, not dramatically, not obviously, just enough that if it continues, it will lead you somewhere you were never meant to live, somewhere that looks acceptable from the outside, but feels heavy on the inside, somewhere that costs you more energy than it gives back. And this is why you are being stopped now. Not to shame you, not to scare you, to spare you. There are paths that are not wrong, but they are not yours. They are responsibilities that are noble but not assigned to your soul. There are choices that seem reasonable but slowly drain the life out of you. Your spirit knows the difference. even when your mind tries to justify the weight. You may be tempted to think, nothing is that wrong. I can keep going like this. And yes, you can. But the question is not whether you can survive it. The question is whether you were meant to live it. This message comes because something still can be shifted. Not by force, not by panic, but by awareness, by willingness, by staying long enough in this moment to let clarity begin its quiet work. My beloved, you do not need to have answers yet. You only need to remain here. To not scroll away from this moment, to not rush back into noise, to not drown out the gentle pressure of this pause. Because soon, very soon, something will start to make sense, and when it does, it will not arrive as fear. It will arrive as recognition. You will feel it in your chest, before you understand it in your mind, and you will know why this interruption had to happen exactly now. And when you begin to see what has been quietly shifting beneath the surface, you will understand why this moment could not wait any longer. My beloved, there was a moment in your past that seemed small at the time, so small, in fact, that if someone asked you to point to it today, you might hesitate. You might say, I don't know exactly when things shifted. They just did, and that's how these moments usually work. They do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with thunder. They arrive quietly, dressed as necessity, dressed as practicality, dressed as something you thought you had to do. It may have been a choice, or a delay, or a silence, or the moment you decided not to speak what was in your heart, or the moment you stayed when something inside you was already beginning to lean away, or the moment you left when something was asking you to wait. It did not feel dangerous. It felt reasonable. But your life felt different after that moment, didn't it? Not immediately. That's what makes this kind of disruption so difficult to recognize. Nothing collapsed. Nothing broke. There was no obvious loss. The days kept moving. The responsibilities stayed the same. The world did not pause. Only something inside you shifted just a few degrees, and a few degrees does not look like much until you walk it for a long time. You have felt it in the way certain things require more effort now, in the way forward motion sometimes feels heavier than it should, in the way rest doesn't always restore you the way it used to. You can sleep and still wake up tired. You can finish things and still feel unfinished. You can be surrounded and still feel slightly alone. You told yourself it was just life, just stress, just seasons. And yes, life is heavy sometimes. Seasons do change. But my beloved, not all weight comes from effort. Some weight comes from direction. You have been trying to compensate ever since, adjusting, adapting, pushing, hoping that eventually things will click back into place. And sometimes they almost do. You catch glimpses of flow, of peace, of momentum, of a version of yourself that feels lighter, clearer, more like you. But it doesn't stay. It slips away again, and you find yourself asking questions you rarely say out loud. Why does it feel like I'm always almost there? Why do I have to push so hard for things that used to move naturally? Why does something keep pulling me back into the same emotional or situational patterns? These are not complaints. They are signals. And hear this gently, because this matters. Much of what shifted was not fully your fault. You were responding to circumstances, to other people's needs, to expectations that were placed on you before you had time to decide what you truly wanted. You were trying to be loyal, trying to be responsible, trying to keep things from falling apart, trying to survive a moment asked more from you than you had prepared for. You did not choose from peace, you chose from pressure. And that does not make you weak, it makes you human. Some disruptions enter quietly. They do not steal your life. They slowly rearrange it. They do not announce themselves as wrong. They present themselves as necessary. and once you are inside them, you become very good at enduring. My beloved, there are seasons when survival mode looks like strength. And you have survived, you have endured, you have kept going when it would have been easier to stop, to quit, to disappear, to harden your heart. That matters more than you know. But endurance is not the same as alignment. You can be strong and still be off course. You can be faithful and still be tired. You can be doing your best and still be slowly draining. There has been a quiet confusion living inside you, a low constant question that never fully leaves. A sense that something is unresolved, something unfinished, something that never quite settled the way you hoped it would. You don't always think about it, but you feel it. In the way certain conversations make your chest tight. In the way certain decisions exhaust you before you even make them. In the way you sometimes miss a version of yourself you can't fully explain. My beloved, this is not because you failed. It is because something was postponed. Something was set aside. Something was temporarily traded for stability, or peacekeeping, or approval, or safety, and it was meant to be temporary. But time has passed. And now your spirit is tired of carrying what was never meant to be permanent. You are not being judged. You are being invited to notice. Notice what keeps repeating. Notice what keeps draining. Notice what never fully settles, no matter how much effort you give it. Your spirit has been trying to tell you for a long time. And now, instead of whispering, it is finally being answered. And what this quiet disruption has been both protecting you from and delaying you for will soon begin to surface. My beloved, you may have wondered why certain doors seem to take so long to open. Why some breakthroughs arrive almost but not quite. Why cycles repeat themselves with different faces but the same feeling. Why you do so much inner work, make so much effort, and still find yourself standing in familiar emotional territory. This is not because you are stuck. And it is not because you are forgotten. It is because something has been quietly protecting you. Protection does not always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like delay. You have felt this in your life as pauses you did not ask for, as waiting seasons that stretched longer than you expected, as plans that almost worked, as connections that almost became something more, as progress that seemed close enough to touch and then slowed. And somewhere along the way you may have started to wonder if you were doing something wrong. Hear this gently: you were not being blocked. You were being buffered. There are paths that look right, but would have asked too much of you in the long run. There are outcomes that seem desirable, but would have required you to keep living in a posture that is slowly emptying you. There are doors that, if they had opened too easily, would have locked you into a version of life that does not fit your spirit. So instead of acceleration, you were given friction. Instead of arrival, you were given reflection. Instead of finality, you were given time. And time, my beloved, has been doing quiet work in you. You may call it delay, but delay is not the same as denial. You have noticed repeating patterns, the same kind of emotional test in different forms, the same kind of pressure showing up in different situations, the same kind of decision point returning, just dressed in new circumstances. This is not punishment. This is invitation. When a lesson is gentle, it comes once. When it is important, it returns until it is seen. And still, you have kept going. You have adapted. You have learned how to function inside what feels unfinished. You have learned how to be productive even when you are not fully at peace. You have learned how to smile even when your spirit is quietly asking for something to change. But my beloved, functioning is not the same as flourishing. You are not meant to live in constant emotional maintenance mode. You are not meant to always be almost there. You are not meant to always be the one who adjusts while something else stays the same. Some of the heaviness you carry is not from effort. It is from misalignment. And this is where the urgency begins to matter, because the longer something stays slightly off, the more energy it costs to keep everything else running. You have been paying that cost for a long time, in your patience, in your enthusiasm, in your capacity to rest deeply, in your ability to feel fully hopeful without guarding your heart. And yet notice this, you are still here, still seeking, still listening, still willing to grow. That is not weakness. That is resilience. But even resilience needs direction. My beloved, there are moments when protection must turn into correction, when the same unseen hands that have been slowing things down now begin to gently turn things around. And that moment is approaching, not with chaos, not with force, with clarity. You may feel a subtle increase in internal pressure lately, a sense that something has to change, a restlessness that is not anxiety but readiness, a holy dissatisfaction with staying in the same emotional or situational loops. That is not discomfort. That is alignment trying to return. You are not running out of time, but you are entering a narrower window. A season where the course can still be adjusted with grace, instead of later with pain. This is why this message is coming now and not later. Because the cycles you have been living in cannot continue forever, not because they are evil, but because they are incomplete. They were meant to prepare you, not to become your permanent home. And hear this, nothing you have walked through has been wasted. Every delay has built something in you. Every pause has kept you from something you were not ready to carry. Every almost has been quietly shaping your discernment. But now, my beloved, preparation is giving way to transition. The protection that looked like waiting is beginning to look like movement. And that movement requires one thing from you, willingness to realign, not to fix everything, not to control outcomes, not to force clarity, just to be willing to let your direction be gently corrected. Soon you will begin to notice small changes, not outside first but inside, a shift in what you tolerate, a shift in what you desire, a shift in what you are no longer willing to carry alone. Do not ignore that. That is the first sign that the season is changing, and as this internal shift begins, you will start to sense that you are not the only one watching this moment unfold. My beloved, you have never been as alone as you sometimes feel. There have been nights when you thought no one saw how tired you were, days when you carried your responsibilities quietly, without asking for help, without knowing how to explain the weight, moments when you wondered if your silent efforts mattered at all. They have always mattered. There is more awareness around your life than you can see, more attention than you can feel, more care than you have ever been able to measure, not in a way that watches to accuse, in a way that watches to protect. Your life is not moving through empty space. It is moving through intention, through layers of meaning and memory and purpose that extend far beyond what you can track with your eyes. You are not overlooked, you are observed with care. There have been moments when you felt strangely held together, times when things could have fallen apart, but did, times when a conversation almost went in a direction that would have changed everything and then didn't, times when you were delayed, rerouted, or interrupted without understanding why. Those were not coincidences, they were quiet interventions. You may not remember all the times you were spared from what you thought you wanted. You may not see how many doors closed because what was behind them would have required you to abandon parts of yourself you were not meant to lose. But something saw, something remembered, something stayed near. My beloved, every sincere tear you have held back, every silent prayer you have whispered or only thought, every moment you have chosen to keep going even when your strength was thinned, has all been noticed. Nothing sincere is ever wasted. Nothing honest is ever ignored. You are surrounded by more support than you realize, but it does not override your will. It does not force you into alignment. It waits for your permission. It watches for your readiness. It responds to your openness. This is important, because help is available, but it is not imposed. You are not being carried like an object. You are being accompanied like a person with agency, dignity, and choice. There is a kind of assistance that protects you from harm without asking, and there is a deeper kind that waits for your yes. You are standing at the edge of that second kind now. Your life, your direction, your unfolding story, these are not being observed with indifference. They are being held with care and with hope. There is an awareness around you that understands not only where you are but where you are meant to be, and it has been patient. Very patient. It has watched you learn. It has watched you endure. It has watched you grow stronger in places you didn't even realize were being strengthened. And now, it is watching for a different movement. Not another season of endurance, but a season of response. You may feel this as a strange sense of being seen lately, as if certain thoughts are being gently brought to the surface, as if certain patterns are being quietly highlighted, as if certain inner questions are becoming harder to ignore. That is not pressure. That is attention. And it is loving. My beloved, there is intercession woven into your story, support you did not ask for, timing that adjusted itself around you, protection that showed up disguised as inconvenience. Even the delays you resented were in part care. Even the closed doors you mourned were, in part, guidance. Even the detours that confused you were in part mercy. But now, the kind of help that wants to come next cannot arrive without your participation. It requires your agreement, your willingness, your consent to be gently rerouted. You are not being commanded. You are being invited. Invited to notice. Invited to soften. Invited to stop pretending that you don't feel what you feel. Invited to admit that something in your life needs to be adjusted, not because it is terrible, but because it is not true to your deepest design. And hear this, you are not being rushed, but you are being watched over with hope. There is a sense of expectancy around your life right now. Not tension expectancy, like someone who knows you are about to see something important and is waiting for the moment your eyes finally adjust to the light. You do not have to perform. You do not have to prove anything. You only have to be willing. And that willingness is already beginning to grow in you. You can feel it in the way you are less satisfied with surface answers, in the way you are less able to ignore what your spirit is quietly pointing at, in the way you are starting to sense that you are being supported towards something, not away from something. My beloved, you are not being watched to be judged. You are being watched to be helped. And the help that is closest now is waiting for a simple but profound shift inside you. And very soon, you will feel that shift begin to ask something gentle but decisive of your heart. My beloved, there comes a moment in every true transition when nothing outside has changed yet, but everything inside is already leaning in a new direction. This is that moment for you. You may not be able to explain it clearly. You may not have language for it, but you can feel it as a subtle inner shift, a quiet readiness, a sense that the way you have been moving cannot continue forever, not because it is unbearable, but because something deeper is calling you forward. Rerouting does not begin with dramatic events. It begins with permission. Permission to question what you have been tolerating. Permission to admit that something you once chose no longer fits. Permission to consider that stability and alignment are not always the same thing. You have been faithful to what you committed to. You have been loyal to what you said yes to. You have tried to make it work, to make it right, to make it enough. And that effort has not been ignored. But effort alone cannot create harmony if the direction itself is slightly off. There is a gentler way opening before you now, not a way that erases your past, a way that redeems it. My beloved, a reroute is not a rejection of where you have been. It is an acknowledgement of where you are meant to go, and it does not require you to have everything figured out. It only requires willingness to be guided. You may soon notice that something begins to surface. A thought you keep returning to. a name that comes to mind unexpectedly, a conversation that suddenly feels necessary, a truth that becomes harder to keep pushing away. Do not be afraid of this. This is how realignment begins. Not with force, with clarity. You will not be dragged into a new direction. You will be invited, and the invitation may be quiet. It may arrive as a moment of honesty with yourself. It may arrive as a gentle discomfort you can no longer ignore. It may arrive as a strange sense of relief when you imagine doing something differently, even if that difference still feels uncertain. That relief is important. It is the signal that your spirit recognizes the path, even if your mind is still catching up. My beloved, you are not being asked to burn everything down. You are being asked to loosen your grip, to stop holding together what is costing you your breath, to stop calling endurance a destiny, to stop postponing alignment out of fear of what change might require. The reroute does not begin with action, it begins with consent, with a quiet yes inside you. Yes to being guided. Yes to being honest. Yes to letting something be adjusted, without needing to control every detail of how it happens. You have been strong for a long time. Now you are being invited to be receptive. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. You may feel a mixture of emotions in this phase, relief and fear, hope and hesitation, excitement and grief for what you may have to release. All of that is normal. Transitions do not only move you towards something new, they also ask you to bless what is ending. Even if what is ending was never fully wrong, only incomplete. My beloved, there is a version of your life that requires less effort to breathe. A version of your days where you are not constantly compensating for something that is slightly misaligned. A version of you that is not always in holding things together mode. That version is not a fantasy, it is a direction. And you are standing at the entrance to it now. The reroute will not come all at once, it will come in steps, in small inner decisions, in subtle shifts of what you prioritize, in gentle courage to have the conversation, or set the boundary, or finally admit what you already know. You do not need to rush. But you do need to respond, because this moment will not stay open forever, not as a threat, as a reality of timing. There are windows in life that are seasons, not permanent fixtures, and this one is open now. My beloved, do not wait for certainty before you move. Certainty comes after alignment, not before. Do not wait for fear to disappear. Fear often walks beside important changes. Wait instead for the quiet knowing that is already forming inside you. That knowing is enough to begin. Soon something will confirm this inward shift, a sign, a conversation, a moment of clarity that feels both gentle and undeniable. When it comes, do not overanalyze it, receive it, because this is not about you forcing your life into a new shape. It is about your life finally being allowed to return to its true one. And as this reroute begins to take form, you will start to see something that has been hidden come into the light. My beloved, when truth begins to surface, it rarely arrives all at once. It comes in layers, in moments, in realizations that feel small at first, but keep returning until they cannot be ignored. You are entering that phase now, not a phase of chaos. A phase of clarity. For a long time, you have been living with partial information about yourself, about a situation, about what is actually costing you more than it should. You have been kind to others, patient, willing to give the benefit of the doubt, willing to carry uncertainty longer than most. That compassion is beautiful. But now, compassion must be paired with honesty. You may already be feeling the shift, a new sensitivity, a lower tolerance for what once felt manageable, a sharper awareness when something is not true to your spirit. You may find yourself suddenly tired of explaining things away, tired of minimizing what you feel, tired of pretending that something is fine when it is merely familiar. This is not irritation. This is discernment waking up. Revelation does not always expose something dramatic. Sometimes it simply removes the fog. And when the fog lifts, you see things as they are, not as you hoped they were, not as you feared they were, but as they truly are. That can be emotional. You may feel grief for how long you have carried something. You may feel anger for how much energy it took. You may feel relief that you are finally able to name what has been unnamed. You may even feel a strange mix of all three. Let yourself feel it. But do not let those emotions drive your decisions. Observe them. You are not meant to react in this phase. You are meant to see. My beloved, clarity is not loud. It is steady. It does not rush you. It grounds you. You may notice certain memories returning with new meaning, certain patterns suddenly making sense, certain relationships, habits, or obligations being seen through a different lens, not with bitterness but with precision. You are not becoming harsher. You are becoming clearer. And clarity is kind, even when it is firm. There may also be something external that comes into view. A truth spoken, a detail revealed, a realization that lands in your chest with quiet certainty. When that happens, breathe. Do not immediately try to fix everything. Do not confront everything at once. Do not assume you must act instantly. Revelation is first for understanding. Action comes later. You have spent a long time surviving inside partial clarity. Now you are being invited to live inside fuller truth. That transition deserves gentleness. My beloved, one of the signs you are in the revelation phase is this. Your nervous system begins to calm, even as your mind becomes clearer. You feel less confused, even if you have more to think about. You feel less scattered, even if big questions are forming. You feel less pressured to pretend. That is alignment beginning to settle in. You may also notice a strong temptation to explain yourself to everyone, to justify your new perspective, to make sure people understand your heart. Be patient with that impulse. Not everyone needs the whole story. Not everyone will understand it yet. This phase is not about being validated. It is about being honest with yourself first. There is a dignity in quiet clarity. There is strength in not needing to argue with what you now see. My beloved, something important is being named in your spirit, not an accusation, in recognition. And recognition is powerful. It is the difference between wandering and choosing, between enduring and directing, between coping and aligning. You may also feel a gentle grief for what could have been different. That is normal. Grief does not mean you are going backward. It means you are integrating truth. Let it pass through you without becoming a verdict on your past. Your past was not wrong. It was formative. And now you are forming something new. Soon, you will notice that your decisions begin to come from a quieter place. Less urgency. Less emotional charge. More steadiness. More self-respect. More inner permission. That is the fruit of revelation, not drama. Direction. My beloved, trust this phase. Do not rush it. Do not resist it. And do not turn it into a performance or a battle. You are not here to expose anyone. You are here to become free. And freedom begins with seeing clearly and choosing gently. And as this clarity continues to settle, you will begin to sense that a window is opening, one that will not remain open forever. My beloved, there are moments in life that feel like invitations rather than commands. Moments that do not force you but wait for you. This is one of those moments. A window is opening. Not a window to return to who you were. A window to return to who you were meant to become. Restoration does not mean going backward. It does not mean undoing every choice, or recreating every old situation. It does not mean pretending nothing happened, or trying to live in a version of the past that no longer exists. True restoration is forward-facing. It is the return of clarity, the return of peace, the return of your sense of direction. the return of parts of yourself that had to grow quiet just to survive. You may already be feeling the first signs of this. A little more energy in the morning, a little more honesty in your thoughts, a little more courage in your imagination, a subtle sense that life could feel lighter than it has. That is not wishful thinking. That is alignment beginning to produce fruit. My beloved, restoration often begins internally long before anything outside changes. You may still be in the same environment, the same responsibilities, the same relationships, but you are no longer the same inside them. You are clearer. You are steadier. You are less willing to abandon yourself. And that changes everything. This window is precious because it is not permanent, not because it will disappear as punishment, but because seasons move. There are times when change is easier, when momentum supports you, when your inner readiness and external opportunity overlap. You are entering such a time now. Hesitation will not ruin your life, but it can delay your relief. It can prolong your tiredness. It can keep you living one more season in a posture you have already outgrown. You have lived long enough in almost. You have carried enough just for now. You have postponed yourself enough times to keep the peace, to keep things stable, to keep others comfortable. Restoration is not about becoming selfish. It is about becoming whole. My beloved, you may be tempted to think that restoration means getting back what you lost. Sometimes it does. Often it means receiving something better fitted to who you are now. You are not the same person you were before the delays, before the lessons, before the long endurance. And that is not a tragedy. That is growth. The peace that is returning to you now is not fragile. It is informed. It knows what you will no longer tolerate. It knows what you will no longer trade yourself for. It knows what alignment feels like in your body. And it will protect that. You may notice that you are less drawn to certain things, less willing to over-explain, less willing to overextend, less willing to live on emotional credit. That is restoration, not excitement. Stability. My beloved, do not romanticize what you are being freed from. Do not confuse familiarity with safety. Do not interpret the discomfort of growth as a sign you are making a mistake. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is allow your life to become simpler, cleaner, quieter, truer. This restoration will not look dramatic to everyone else, but it will feel like oxygen to you. You will breathe deeper, you will sleep better, you will think more clearly. You will stop needing to convince yourself that things are okay. They will begin to actually be okay. But hear this gently. This window responds to movement, not rushing, not panic, but response. Small decisions made in the right direction, honest conversations, clear boundaries, gentle courage. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you will keep living in the almost. The perfect moment is not coming. The available moment is here. My beloved, restoration does not require you to destroy your life. It requires you to rearrange it, to put yourself back in proper alignment with what gives you life, to stop organizing your days around what drains you, to start organizing them around what sustains you. You do not have to do everything at once, but you do have to begin. Soon you will notice that doors begin to open more easily, not because you are forcing them, but because you are finally walking in the right direction. And when that happens, you will realize something quietly profound. Life was not resisting you. It was waiting for you to come back to yourself. And now only one thing remains: an honest, gentle, and decisive response from your heart. My beloved, everything has been leading to this moment, not to overwhelm you, not to corner you, but to place something simple and powerful back into your hands. Your response. You have walked a long way to arrive here, through confusion, through endurance, through seasons where you had to be stronger than you wanted to be, through choices that made sense at the time, through compromises that helped you survive but slowly asked you to shrink. And still you are here, not broken, not behind, not disqualified. You are here because your story is not finished, and because something in you has always known that there is more life waiting for you than the version you have been managing. Hear this gently: the mistake does not define you. The delay does not define you. The detour does not define you. Your response does. Right now you may feel a quiet seriousness in your chest. Not fear, not panic, just a weight that says this matters. That is not pressure from outside. That is your own spirit recognizing a real turning point. This is not a moment for promises. It is a moment for consent. Consent to stop abandoning yourself in small ways. Consent to stop calling endurance your only option. Consent to stop living as if your deepest needs are inconveniences. You are not being asked to become someone else. You are being asked to finally return to yourself. My beloved, you do not need to announce this decision to the world. You do not need to explain it to everyone. You do not need to solve everything today. You only need to choose a direction and take one honest step. That step might be internal. It might be a boundary you finally honor. It might be a truth you finally admit. It might be a conversation you finally allow yourself to consider. It might be a quiet release of something you have been carrying out of habit, rather than calling. Do not underestimate small, true steps. They change the shape of a life. You may still feel afraid. That does not mean you are wrong. You may still feel unsure. That does not mean you are unready. You may still feel attached to what is familiar. That does not mean it is where you belong. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to stop letting fear be the one who decides. My beloved, the life that is opening to you does not require you to perform. It does not require you to prove. It does not require you to bleed to earn rest. It requires you to align, to tell the truth inside yourself, to walk in the direction that gives you back your breath. There is a quiet strength waiting for you on the other side of this choice. Not a dramatic strength, a stable one, the kind that lets you sleep, the kind that lets you say no without guilt, the kind that lets you say yes without losing yourself. You are not late, but you are being called to be present. Do not postpone this with another season of someday. Someday is not a date. Someday is a story that never gets lived. Today does not ask you to change everything. Today asks you to begin. And beginnings are always smaller than we expect, but more powerful than we imagine. My beloved, if you do nothing, life will still move, but it will move along the old grooves. If you respond even gently, even imperfectly, life will begin to move with you instead of around you. That is the difference. This is not a dramatic crossroads with signs and noise and pressure. It is a quiet one, a simple one, a sacred one. It sounds like this: will you choose yourself enough to align with what gives you life? You do not have to answer out loud, but answer honestly, and then let your next small step agree with that answer. You are not alone in this. You never have been. And you are not stepping into uncertainty. You are stepping into a truer version of your own life. Stay with this. Do not rush away from this feeling. Do not drown it out with noise. Let it settle. Let it guide you. Because this is not the end of something. It is the beginning of your return. And this time, you will not leave yourself behind.